How are we doing? Yeah, so I'm back. I haven't been making videos much because I've been writing much. Everything you see in my videos is in here. I get an idea, I write, and if I think it's good enough or something that I feel like should be shared and not just kept in my book, I'll make a video. I like to get these ideas out. I'm not saying I'm any type of preacher, but it just kind of feels like I'm drawn towards this, and that's actually what the video is about, what you're drawn towards. Everyone in this world, their biggest fear is being alone. They're so afraid of being alone that they're always on their phones and they're with people they don't even really like, and they're making all these regrettable decisions based on this addiction of fulfillment that these certain desires are meeting. See, I've always been something of an introvert myself, so I didn't think that I could be hit with this condition, this disease we call loneliness. But we're all human and we all do. We might not even be aware in the moment that we're alone or we feel alone, but something is missing. This is why you can be the most successful, rich, famous person on the planet, but if these needs aren't met, you can still feel alone. I don't think the state of loneliness is the state of being alone. It's not solitude. These are very different things. Solitude is the state of being alone with oneself. It's the individual, and there's a lot of power to that. But loneliness is more of a negative thing. There's more negative connotations to the word loneliness. No one wants to be alone, and I think what they mean when they're alone is they're not having these needs met. And we think that they're social needs. We have an emptiness within ourselves, or we can sometimes. And it's because we're not meeting these needs. And it becomes loneliness when we confuse these needs with social needs. And we think that we're not socializing as much as we used to. We're very social creatures. So we confuse this emptiness with loneliness. When really to the core, you're not lonely at all. You're really just empty. Boredom, misdirected boredom, I should say. You think you're bored because you're not having fun socializing like you always did your whole life. But really, your boredom is misunderstood. None of us, or not a lot of us, can sit with our boredom long enough to realize this. We all have a cheap fix to our boredoms in our pockets 24/7. And whether that's food, drugs, entertainment, people, or just your phone, this constant stimulating device is following you wherever you go, and it's very hard to escape. And it definitely is an addiction that we all have. It's sitting with your boredom long enough and finding out, the secrets within the mind. It's finding out what you really should be doing. You can be so bored with your life that you just start something brand new, and that can only be done with extreme boredom. So you got to sit with the pain for long enough. And for us, we all have our phone that can snap us out of this boredom at any given moment. We can't even go 15 seconds without pulling up our phone if we're just in this state of boredom. And when we were young, when we were kids, we could create worlds with our mind. We could be lost in ourselves for however long, even hours, just playing pretend and creating worlds and characters and all that. And that took effort, that took energy, but we did it because it's all we could do. We were sitting in our boredom for so long. So now we've grown up and we think we're above this childlike sense of wonder, but within that boredom is the key to finding ourselves, our truest selves. The only difference between the most successful and the least successful of people is what they've chose to do and how they've chose to spend their free time. And that's them dwelling in their boredom. And it's how they've handled their boredom is what differentiates their success. You'll never get anything done if you can't be bored. You'll never discover what you should do if you can't be bored, and you'll never find yourself if you can't be bored. This is why I preach meditation, because it is the art of sitting with yourself, sitting with your mind, and just turning everything off. And you learn so much. But that's obviously a different video. I've had a meditation video, and I'm probably going to make some more. But it's within meditation that you become okay with being alone with your mind for a moment. And I'm not telling you to meditate right now. I'm just telling you Next time you're about to go on your phone and you have nothing going on, just sit down for a moment and just, it'll be so painful. To me, it's one of the most painful experiences. Resist the urge to distract yourself for long enough. And I promise you, you will find the depths of yourself. You will figure out your truest self because it is already within you, but you're just too scared to dig that deep. So these 3 things is what's very important, okay? These 3 questions. Ask yourself this in your boredom. So think back to yourself when you were young as you can remember. As long as you have a memory of it, that's good. Think back and ask yourself, what was I naturally drawn towards as a kid? What was I good at as a kid? And what was I afraid of? Those are the 3 questions. Repeat those. And you're probably asking yourself, what do I want to do with my life? Who am I? Stuff like that. And I promise you, the answer to those questions is in those big 3 questions. And it all goes back to your childhood self, because that's the secret. It's already been within you, but you've just been too afraid to dig that deep. And it's not always as direct as it was for me. For example, I've always been drawn towards music. I've always been good at instruments naturally. I've had an ear. So that was obviously what I should be doing with my life. And surprisingly enough, it took longer than you'd think for me to even realize that. I'm young myself. I'm only 19 now, but there was probably a 6-year period of my life between being a child and loving music to growing up as a teenager and resenting my childhood self, to maturing and becoming a man and being mature enough to look back at my childhood and take the good things from it. And for me, that was music. But it's not always that direct. And I am very fortunate to have been that lucky, because that's a very easy answer. I look back, instruments. I look to now. I got instruments. It's as simple as that. But yeah, it's not always that direct. It can be little things. And you got to ask yourself these questions. What were you drawn towards? What were you good at? You were doing crazy, wild things as a kid. You were making mud pies. You were creative. What do the mud pies represent? Ask yourself these things and answer it yourself. And that might take time because I can't answer it for you. But I might be able to put you in the right direction with these questions. And sometimes you got to read between the lines of these questions and answers, like of what you've gotten before, to figure it all out and to really get to the bottom of it. But I promise you, if you give it enough time, and I can't say how much time is enough time, but if you give it enough time, you will be surprised once you've figured it out by how simple and obvious it was the whole time.